Billionaire CEO rescues hungry waiter collapsed at work. His secret will shock you. The air was thick with tension. Guests at Citrine, Aiden's posh New York restaurant, whispered in shock. Chuckles faded into gasps as Leo, one of the waiters, crumpled to the floor, his face pale and pinched. Aiden, tall and imposing, noticed the commotion from the bar, his heart pounding in his chest. The glint of polished cutlery and shimmering glasses blurred as he rushed toward the scene. Leo lay sprawled on the cold tiles. A small pool of sweat glistened around his head. Aiden's mind reeled. The restaurant was known for lavish meals and sparkling champagne. But Leo, the man who always wore that tired smile, who hustled and bustled with trays heavier than him, he had been holding the place together, yet here he was, falling apart. Under the murmurs of concerned onlookers, Aiden knelt down beside him. The young man's ribs jutted out sharply against his shirt, a stark reminder of what hunger truly meant. "Don't move, Leo," Aiden said, his voice steadier than he felt. He glanced at the kitchen staff, panic-stricken as they hastily arranged for medical assistance. Aiden pressed a hand firmly against Leo's wrist, feeling the weak pulse beneath his skin. When Leo's eyelids fluttered open, confusion clouded his sharp blue gaze. "Hey, just breathe, all right?" Aiden soothed, a knot twisting in his gut. Leo blinked a few times, recognition breaking through the fog. But before he could respond, Aiden felt a swift rush of warmth at his side, a hand, too familiar, pressed into his area. "Don't bother Aiden, he's done for," sneered Jonah, Aiden's business partner. A predatory grin twisted his lips. Jonah had never cared for the staff, and the spectacle only amused him. Aiden shot him a glare, feeling a surge of protectiveness. The restaurant symbolized his dreams and years of hard work. Leo represented the very soul of Citrine, and now, amid threats and manipulations, there was something deeper, something unsaid. Aiden's mind raced back to family gatherings as a child, tales of a relative who mysteriously vanished, the whispers of his parents mixed with muted snapshots of a smiling woman. The familiar aches of family ties resurfaced. Could Leo be? His heart raced. Just then, an ambulance siren wailed in the distance. The crowd parted as paramedics arrived, their equipment clattering against the tiled floor. While they worked, Aiden felt a chill. What if Leo was more than just an employee? What if he was tied to those family secrets? As Leo received attention, Aiden caught Jonah's eyes, glinting with greed. "You know, family connections could be highly profitable for us," he mused, mischief dancing in his tone. "Shut up," Aiden hissed, his own pulse quickening as dread settled in the pit of his stomach. This wasn't just about business, it was personal now. With Leo weak but recovering, Aiden knew this mystery was only just beginning. Was Leo connected to his lost family? And what dangers awaited them both? Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming up. And since you're here, smash that like button, because it really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. As the paramedics hovered over Leo, tending to his frail body, Aiden's heart raced. He clenched his jaw, trying to block out Jonah's mocking laughter. This was not the time for jokes about profit or family secrets. The tension thickened, and Aiden's mind darted back to his childhood. He couldn't shake the thought that Leo might be connected to his lost relative, someone he could hardly remember. Then, as Aiden pushed those thoughts aside, something unexpected happened. Leo's hand twitched, gripping Aiden's forearm tightly. His eyes widened, filled with both fear and recognition. "Aiden, you have to listen," he whispered, his breath faint. The paramedics paused, their instruments still in the air. Everyone held their breath. "What is it? What do you know?" Aiden leaned closer, urgency bubbling inside him. Just then, Leo's grip slacked and he fell back against the cold tiles. A shock coursed through Aiden. Panic swelled like a tidal wave, but he fought it down. Before he could process, Leo's voice emerged again, almost like a whisper of the wind. "It was you." Aiden's heart dropped. "What do you mean?" But Leo gasped, his eyes darting to the side, and then he turned towards Jonah. The calm, confident aura around Aiden shattered like glass, replaced by a creeping dread. You're not who you think you are, Aiden," the crowd murmured, confusion rippling through the onlookers. Jonah's face morphed from smug satisfaction to genuine surprise. "Shut up," Jonah snapped, clearly rattled. "He's delirious." But Aiden caught a glint of something more behind Jonah's eyes. An emotion that felt like fear. "No." Leo leaned up, struggling against the pain. "It's true, you have to know." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Aiden felt himself reeling, his world spiraling. Suddenly, Leo's breathing quickened dramatically. Aiden grabbed him by the shoulders, urging him on. "Tell me, Leo. It's about your mother. The secrets, the lies. You and I," his voice faltered. "Where?" And then, without warning, Leo convulsed. The paramedics sprang into action, pushing Aiden back. The harsh reality twisted Aiden's stomach. He couldn't look away. The cries of the onlookers morphed into a muffled roar around him, as he felt the ground shake beneath his feet. Jonah's expression hardened. "You need to fix this, Aiden. You can't have a broken employee on your hands. It'll ruin us." Aiden's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" He shot a furious glance at Jonah, but all he could focus on was Leo, who lay there, his life hanging by a thread, clutching at the remnants of a revelation that felt too huge to comprehend. But then, just as the paramedics prepped to load Leo onto a stretcher, a strange sound pierced through the chaos, a low, ominous humming, resonating from deeper in the restaurant. The lights flickered. It drew everyone's attention. The kitchen door slammed open, and a figure stepped out, cloaked in shadow. The air thickened with tension. Aiden squinted. Whoever it was, they looked deadly serious. A new wave of chills surged through him. "Like ice water. What's going on?" he shouted over the panic. "Stop," the figure commanded, their voice echoing like thunder. "You have no idea what you're about to unleash." Every eye was drawn to this newcomer. Every breath caught in suspense. What the hell was happening? Aiden felt the fabric of his life tear apart, stretching into uncertainty. What truths were bound to unfold? Would Leo's secret change everything? What dark forces were at play? The world around him shattered, and Aiden stood on the precipice of an unknown abyss, teetering between what was and what could be. Aiden's heart thundered as the cloaked figure stepped closer. The air felt electric, thick with dread and unanswered questions. Who was this person? What did they know? Everything around him faded, the murmurs, the frantic movements of the paramedics, even Jonah's fuming glare. All he could focus on was that voice. It cut through the chaos, a siren calling him toward a storm. "Stop!" The figure's command sliced through the room. Faces turned, whispers ignited. "You're standing on secrets that will bury you whole." The words dripped with a heavy gravity, pulling Aiden deeper into the unfolding drama. "What secrets?" Aiden yelled back, desperation creeping into his voice. It was as if the figure was flicking switches inside him, lighting up hidden corners of his past he thought were dark forever. "Who are you?" A flash of recognition crossed the figure's face. For just a moment, the shadows receded, revealing striking features that felt hauntingly familiar. Aiden squinted through the dim light, trying to connect fragments of memory. The shape of their jaw, the curve of their lip. A feeling twisted in his gut. The figure stepped fully into view, revealing a woman with fierce eyes that shone like a beacon in the dim restaurant. "You don't remember me, do you?" She wore a sorrowful smile, raw and real. "I'm Grace. Your sister." The word crashed over him like a tidal wave. A sister? He had spent years wondering about family, chasing shadows of lost relatives. Now the truth landed like a concrete block in his chest. The murmurs of guests grew louder, the words sister and family mixing into a dizzying fog. No, it can't be, Aiden gasped, his mind racing. He felt unsteady as if the ground beneath him was slipping away. The weight of Jonah's stare burned into his back, and he barely registered Leo, gasping for breath, the paramedics hovering nearby like tense puppets, waiting to spring into action. "Forget about him, Aiden," Jonah barked, his voice sharp. "This is bad business." "The hell it is," Aiden shot back, anger surging. "You're the one who's bad for this place. Focus." Grace snapped, and the command in her voice cut through their bickering. "What's happening here? Leo, your life. It all connects to what happened to your mother. The way she vanished, the family secrets buried beneath lies." Aiden felt a shadow pass over him, something dark and oppressive. His throat tightened as he absorbed her words. "What do you mean? What happened to her?" The power of her stare bore into him, full of urgency and pain. "You have to trust me. They're coming for us. For Leo." The mention of Leo twisted Aiden's heart. He could see the young man still, his face pale, his body weakened. "What do you know about Leo?" Aiden demanded, almost pleading. Before Grace could answer, Leo catapulted back to life, his eyes wide with fear as he gasped, "Don't trust her." The sudden burst sent shockwaves through the crowd, hands flying to mouths, expressions frozen in horror. "Leo!" Aiden cried, feeling helpless. "What do you mean?" But Leo's focus was on Grace, his voice trembling. "You were supposed to stay gone. You shouldn't have come back." Her expression faltered, a flicker of hurt. Aiden's heart raced, pounding against uncertainty. Family ties spiraled into conflict he never expected. Who was telling the truth? Were they all connected in this twisted web of secrets? As the paramedics pulled Leo up onto a stretcher, something shifted in the air. A chill swept through the restaurant. The distant sound of sirens grew louder, but it wasn't the ambulance anymore. It felt different. Aiden's gut knotted as dread settled deep within him. "There's more," Grace whispered, her face pale. "They're here." Just as he turned to ask what she meant, the lights flickered again. A hard thud resonated through the restaurant, and the kitchen door burst open once more. Shadows poured in, figures cloaked in darkness, a new menace entering their fragile world. Aiden struggled to grasp it all. Family betrayal, buried truths, and fear creeping like a vine around his heart. He didn't know it yet, but everything was about to change. The rush of chaos enveloped him. Who could he trust now? And more importantly, what would he have to face next? Aiden stood frozen as shadows spilled into the restaurant, invading the chaos. Time seemed to stretch, every beat of his heart ringing loudly in his ears. The guests gasped, their eyes wide with fear. Jonah's face twisted into a mask of anger and something else. "Panic? Who the hell are you?" Aiden shouted, his voice trembling as he shifted between Grace and the looming figures. The new arrivals moved with purpose, their faces hidden, but the air was saturated with menace. Suddenly, Leo's voice broke through the tension. "There's no time. You don't understand." Even weakened, he managed to channel urgency. "You have to get out of here. All of you." "Leo," Aiden lunged toward him, but Jonah grabbed his arm, pulling him back. "We need to think." "Think? Think about what, Jonah? Your profits? This is life and death." Aiden pulled free, ready to rush to Leo's side, but the darkness in the doorway had surged forward, swirling like smoke creeping into a room. "Why are you protecting him?" "Aiden," Jonah barked, the tremor in his voice betraying him. "Get it together." The figures stepped into the flickering light, and Aiden's breath hitched. He recognized them, familiar enough to strike terror into his heart. These were not random intruders. They were connected to secrets he didn't fully comprehend. Then in a heartbeat, the atmosphere shifted. The cloaked leader removed their hood, revealing a face Aiden had thought lost to time. His mother. Her eyes, fierce and filled with sorrow, locked onto his. "Aiden," she whispered, a hint of pleading mixing with urgency. No, it can't be. Aiden staggered back, clashing emotions swirling inside him. You disappeared. You left us. The crowd murmured, confusion painted across their faces. I had to protect you, she cried out, her voice breaking. But now they know you're alive. They didn't even realize I had given birth to you. A tense silence blanketed the room. She turned, glancing back toward the figures in shadows. You were never safe. Who are they? Aiden pressed, desperation clawing at his chest. Your family's enemies. They wanted to bury the truth. Her words felt like a punch to the gut. Everything he thought he knew warped before him. Leo, he's the key to your past. Aiden, everything revolves around him. The pressure in the room thickened, and then the tension snapped. One of the cloaked figures lunged forward. Jonah, warding off panic, pushed Aiden toward Grace, glaring protectively. Keep him back. You don't know what they want. Aiden, listen to me. We need to leave. Grace urged, her voice tinged with fear. She was not just a sister, she was a warning. Just then, the leader raised a gloved hand, and from the shadows, a small device buzzed to life, glowing ominously. Aiden's stomach dropped. It wasn't just any device. It was a trigger. Stop, Aiden yelled, realization crashing down. You're all connected, aren't you? The lies. It's all a trap. His mother's eyes flickered with pain. But before she could respond, Leo shuddered violently on the stretcher. Aiden, whatever you do, don't trust them. Panic erupted, the restaurant bursting into a frenzy as the paramedics rushed to stabilize Leo. Aiden felt disoriented, helpless. Jonah was shouting. The cloaked figures were closing in, and Grace's face shifted from concern to fear. Then everything exploded into chaos. The device whirred louder, and the lights flickered wildly. It felt like reality warped, twisting in upon itself. There's no way out, one cloaked figure hissed. Not for you, not for him. Aiden felt the walls of his world crumbling, relationships fracturing. His mother wasn't the savior he hoped for. She was a piece of a dangerous puzzle, and everyone was tangled in a web so complex he couldn't see where it began or ended. As a blinding light erupted from the device, plunging them into chaos, Aiden's heart thundered. What did that light mean? What had they unleashed? In that moment, time suspended, and Aiden stood at the edge of understanding, knowing that everything was about to change, and yet the questions swirled like smoke around him. Who could he trust? What was the real truth buried here? And would they survive long enough to uncover it? Aiden felt time shatter instantly as the light from the device exploded in a blinding flash. Shadows twisted and flickered like a film reel unspooling. He squinted against the brightness, confusion swirling. What was happening? Panic washed over him like a wave, threatening to pull him under. Then a gut-wrenching scream sliced through the noise. It was Leo, his voice sharp with pain, echoing off the restaurant walls. No, don't. The light pulsed, and the entire room seemed to ripple. Jonah pulled Aiden back, his grip tight, fear etched into his features. What are they doing? He gasped, glancing frantically at the cloaked figures. They moved forward, a wall of shadow, advancing in sync. Aiden's heart raced as he caught his mother's eye, a plea resting heavily on her lips. We have to go, Grace shouted, urgency crackling in her voice. But just then, the device erupted, sending a shockwave through the restaurant. Glasses shattered, tables overturned. The guests screamed, scrambling for the exits. Aiden's stomach dropped as he stumbled back, losing sight of Leo. In that moment of chaos, everything shifted. The cloaked figures paused, their leader raising a hand. The light dimmed, the stark white fading to a dull glow. Aiden's breath hitched. In this moment of stillness, the shadows peeled back to reveal something even more terrifying. A wall of screens flickered to life, illuminating the dark room. He blinked, disbelief wrapping around him. Images flashed across the screens. News reports, grainy footage, faces he recognized. They weren't just strangers. They were people from his past, family members. Mom, what is this? He cried out, his chest tightening. His mother stepped forward, urgency in her voice again. Aiden, you don't understand. This is bigger than us. We can't outrun these people. They're watching us. The screen soared to life, showing photos of Leo, pictures Aiden had never seen. He stammered, "Why do you have those? Why do they want him?" "Because Leo is your brother," Grace interjected, her expression pained but resolute. "What?" Aiden stumbled, the world around him tilting. His brother? It couldn't be. It was too much. "No, this doesn't make sense." But as the realization washed over him, Leo's voice threaded through the chaos again. "You have to listen. There's something you don't know about Mom. Aiden's breath caught. What is happening? Before Leo could finish, the screens flickered again, showing a diagram of a network, tangled and complex. It mapped their lives, showing connections he never imagined. "This is the truth," Grace insisted, her eyes boring into him. "We're all connected. They don't just want Leo. They want you, Aiden. They need to keep the legacy hidden." Suddenly, Jonah's expression shifted, fear morphing into rage. "No, you cannot let this happen. Maybe if we just—" "Shut up," Aiden snapped, his mind racing. The reality was setting in, creeping through him. Every word unspooled layers of deception he never grasped. What else did Jonah not know? Then, just as Jonah's anger erupted into action, the cloaked leader lunged forward, not at Aiden, but right through him. The room exploded in chaos again. Leo convulsed, skin waxen and eerie, his eyes rolling back, and Aiden rushed back to his side. "Leo, stay with me," he shouted, pulling him back toward consciousness. But Leo's voice was faint, gasping. "You have to know. Mom isn't who you think. You were never meant to find out like this." "But why? What do?" "You mean?" Aiden shook him gently, panic threatening to drown him. And inside him, something cracked wide open. Was his mother a prisoner in a cycle of betrayal? What had they all really done? "Everything is unraveling," Grace said urgently. "You need to decide, Aiden. Are you ready to face the truth, whatever it may hold?" Before he could answer, a loud crash echoed through the restaurant, pulling all eyes toward the kitchen door, which burst open once again, this time revealing a figure from Aiden's worst nightmares. A man with a cold smirk and glinting eyes, the familiar stranger who had haunted his childhood memories, stepped forward. "Hello, Aiden," he said, voice smooth and dangerously calm. "It's time to end the games." Suddenly, everything he thought he knew flipped upside down. Who was he really? And what else lay hidden in the shadows of his life? Aiden stood frozen, his breath caught in disbelief, as the man he had feared for so long stepped into the light. Everything felt like a twisted nightmare, spiraling out of control. A familiar smirk carved into the stranger's face sent shivers down his spine. "Hello, Aiden," he said, voice smooth and cold. "It's time to end the games." "Who are you?" Aiden shot back, heart racing, the urgency in Grace's eyes mixed with panic. "Is this some kind of joke? What do you want?" The man chuckled, stepping further into the restaurant, the crowd shifting uneasily. "What I want is—" "To end this charade," he replied, glancing at Grace. "You've kept this secret long enough." Aiden's stomach twisted. What secret? Confusion clouded his mind even as he caught Leo's pleading gaze. "Don't you get it? Whatever it is, we're not afraid of you." The figure chuckled again, but this time it turned sinister. "Brave words, but bravery won't save you. Let me enlighten you." He gestured, and suddenly, the screens turned with dizzying speed, displaying frantic images that made Aiden's heart clench. Familiar faces blinked into view. His parents, photos from family events, unearthed memories that filled empty pieces of his past. But one face stood out, glaring from the chaos. It was a face he'd never expected to see. His own. The man on the screen looked older, wearier, almost manic, but it was undeniably him. "What is this?" he shouted, eyes wide. The shock knocked the air from his lungs. "That's not possible." "Ah, but it is," the cloaked man said, stepping closer. "You see, Aiden, you were never the son they claimed you to be. You were the result of an experiment, a pawn in a game much larger than you could fathom. Aiden's mind reeled. What are you saying? His voice trembled, desperation creeping in. This couldn't be true. You're lying. You have to be. But Jonah erupted, his facade of bravado cracking. What the hell are you talking about? Get away from him. The cloaked man smirked, eyes glinting like a predator. You all thought you were safe, didn't you? But the truth is, Aiden, you have no idea how deep the rabbit hole goes. Your family's legacy is built on shadows and blood. The tension in the room thickened, a heavy silence settling as Aiden struggled to process the upheaval of his identity. The fear in Leo's eyes mirrored his own. You don't have to do this, Leo croaked, looking up at Aiden in horror. You have a choice. Choice? The stranger sneered, dismissing Leo with a wave. He won't matter soon enough. The real question is, what will you do with what you know? Aiden turned back to his mother, trying to summon the connection they once shared. Mom, what is happening? Her face twisted, with regret and fear. It's true, Aiden, she whispered, her voice shaking. But we were protecting you. They wanted to use you, to manipulate your power. But I don't have any power, Aiden exclaimed, feeling the walls collapse around him. What am I supposed to do with that? Just then, the room shook. The cloaked figures stirred, their eyes locked onto the door as a loud banging echoed through the restaurant. Something was coming. Something big. The lights flickered once more. Tension electrified the air. Get out, now, Grace yelled, pulling Aiden back toward the emergency exit. But before they could move, the door burst open, and in stormed a group of armed figures. Each one wore a uniform that marked them as agents. From a shadow organization, their faces hidden behind cold masks. The rush of their presence sent shockwaves through the crowd. What have you done? The cloaked leader shouted, suddenly frantic. You let them find us. Aiden's head spun as chaos erupted. His heart raced, pumping adrenaline through his veins. This couldn't be happening. The masked figures spread out, taking control, and all eyes darted in fear. The shocking question rattled inside Aiden. What secrets would be unearthed now? What did it mean to be who he thought he was? And, as he glanced back at his mother, wondering what he could trust, he realized everything was about to change. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were entangled in a web of secrets stretching far beyond his comprehension, with danger clawing at their heels. In that moment of chaos, he caught a glimpse of the truth, hanging precariously between horror and revelation. Just who was he really? And as the tension escalated, Aiden felt the weight of choices looming over him. Would he find the strength to face the darkness that had enveloped his life? Aiden felt the room pulse with a chaos, the air thick with tension and panic. He was caught in a whirlwind of confusion and fear. The masked figures rushed in, their presence a tangible threat. The restaurant that had once felt like home now turned into a battlefield, the walls closing in around him. Mom, Aiden shouted, desperation clawing at his throat, but she was staring wide-eyed at the cloaked leader. The man was a thunderstorm, and Aiden recognized the tension crackling around him, the calm before destruction. What do you mean I'm not who I think I am? What's happening? This isn't the time for that, Grace yelled, her urgency rising, pulling Aiden away from the unfolding nightmare. We need to move. But the second she said that, the cloaked leader raised his hand again, his voice slicing through the chaos. No one is going anywhere. Leo's body jerked beside them. Aiden, this is bigger than you think. You've got to believe me. His voice cracked, fighting through the pain that etched deep lines on his face. Aiden turned, but the cloaked figures shifted, signaling to the armed agents. The room exploded into yelling and frantic movements. Aiden's head spun as reality blurred. What did Leo know? Enough! The cloaked leader's voice boomed across the room. You may be protected for now, but this ends today. Suddenly, there was a blinding flash of light. Aiden covered his eyes, each second feeling like an eternity. When the light faded, something was different. The restaurant itself shifted, the walls pulsating, as if alive. Horror wrapped around him like a vice. "What's happening?" Aiden shouted, as the very ground trembled. "Run!" Grace yelled, yanking Aiden toward the emergency exit. But before they could make it, the figure from Aiden's past, the figure that had haunted his childhood, stepped forward with a smirk. His smile cut through Aiden's mind like glass, and suddenly, the ground beneath them shattered. Shards of reality splintered into a kaleidoscope of images. He saw himself, an image taken from a moment he had never lived, standing in front of a laboratory, the cold metal glinting under fluorescent lights. An experiment? This wasn't reality, was it? And then, with that blinding light, Aiden felt something inside him shift, release. The air became electric, thick with a strange energy. He clasped his head, feeling as if the world was tearing itself apart. "What did you do?" Aiden gasped, clutching Leo's arm, panic surging through him. The cloaked leader grinned wider. "You really didn't know, did you? You think you're just a regular kid?" There lies the truth, Aiden. Suddenly, the masked agents began to converge, the shadows moving as one. Aiden's heart raced, the urgency boiling over. "What did you do?" he shouted. "No, you're not ready," Grace cried, her voice laced with desperation. "You can't handle it." And just then, the cloaked leader stepped closer, lifting a small device that pulsed softly in his palm. "You see, Aiden, you weren't just born. You were engineered. Complications in your genetic structure, manipulations that gave you the potential for power beyond your imagination." Aiden's heart stopped. Power? His power? How could this be true? No, no, he shoved Leo aside, shaking his head in disbelief. "I'm nobody, just a waiter." "But you are more," the figure insisted, leaning in with a sheen of mania in his eyes. "And we will make use of you." Ignition sparked in Aiden's mind. Realization crashed over him with an overwhelming intensity. "You're lying." But the knot in his chest twisted tight. Wasn't it the deepest part of him that craved to know who he really was, who they were? And then, unexpectedly, the cloaked figure's eyes glinted with recognition and fear. "You may have found pieces of yourself," the leader murmured, "but you have no idea whose side you're really on." And in that moment, everything flipped. An explosion of energy erupted, pushing Aiden back. The cloaked leader was thrown across the room, hitting the wall hard. Aiden looked toward the chaos, heart racing, realizing the true nature of the swirling power inside him. Was this a blessing or a curse? As silence fell, clinging to the air like fog, Aiden's pulse raced. Who were they now? What had awakened within him? And just as that dark realization washed over him, he felt a stronger jolt surge through his veins. Something ancient, something powerful. Aiden wondered, could he really be who he didn't even know he was? The question lingered in the air, thick with uncertainty. Just as Aiden stood on the brink of knowing, the walls began to close in once more, and he wondered, what would he choose to become? Aiden felt the electric energy surge through him, wrapping around his body like a firestorm. He stood on a precipice, staring into the deep unknown. The cloaked leader's eyes glinted with a mix of amusement and menace, a sickening contrast to the chaos surrounding them. Aiden could feel the weight of everyone's gaze, their fear palpable, their breaths shallow. "Power beyond your imagination," the leader taunted, sweeping his hand as if to beckon the shadows closer. "But with it comes the cost." Aiden swallowed hard. Could it be true? Was he really something more? And what impact would it have on everyone here? He opened his mouth, ready to object, to shout that he was just a waiter, just a man, but the words faltered as fear gripped him. Suddenly the walls of the restaurant shook again, vibrations thrumming through the floor. The screams grew, panic rippling toward the exits. Jonah shouted over the din, "We need to get out, now!" His face was a mask of fear. Aiden moved instinctively to step forward, but then something snapped. The ground underneath him cracked open, a fissure splitting the floor. The collapsing earth sent a jolt of fear through him, and he stumbled. In the chaos, Leo shouted again, "Aiden, look!" His eyes widened as he turned, just in time to see the cloaked leader motoring toward him. But before Aiden could react, a figure darted past him, moving like lightning. It was Grace, her face set with fierce determination. "Get away from him," she yelled. She shoved the cloaked leader aside, allowing Aiden a moment to breathe. But just as things began to regain some semblance of order, the cloaked leader laughed. A low, sinister sound that echoed throughout the restaurant. "Foolish girl, you don't understand the game." Then, the cloaked figure reached into his pocket, and everything seemed to go still. Silence fell like a blanket. Aiden held his breath. The cloaked leader didn't pull out a weapon, but something much worse. A small, twisted device that pulsed ominously in his palm. "It's not over. This is just the beginning." And then, without warning, he pressed a button. In that instant, the room shook violently. Shards of debris rained down around them, and Aiden's heart raced as swirling shadows spilled from the device, coiling through the restaurant like thick smoke. "Run!" he screamed, grabbing Leo and pulling him toward the emergency exit while chaos erupted behind him. But as they ran, everything changed in a heartbeat. The shadows converged, swirling around Grace, trapped like a moth in a spider's web. "Aiden!" she cried out, voice tinged with terror. "Help me!" But even as Aiden lunged to save her, something twisted in his gut. He could feel a strange pull, an undeniable connection. "No!" he shouted, but it wasn't just any pull. It was as if the shadows were calling to him, beckoning him to join the darkness. Grace's expression morphed from panic to something else. A glimmer of recognition crossed her face, something deeper than fear. "Aiden, don't!" In that moment, everything clicked. She wasn't just his sister. There was more at play. The shadows didn't just hold power, they held history. Aiden's blood ran cold as he pieced it together. And then, completely unexpectedly, Grace smiled. It was a chilling contrast to the impending chaos. "You've always been one of us, Aiden. It's time to embrace your true self." His breath caught in his throat. Everything he thought he knew shattered. Was her loyalty a mere cover for a deeper betrayal? The flames of reality licked at the edges of his sanity. Everything felt like it was boiling over. Aiden realized his own sister had been the catalyst for this disaster. The tide of his world turned upside down, but before he could process it, the weight of the shifting shadows pulled at him harder, wrapping around him like a vise. The cloaked leaders grinned. Behind them, the agents moved forward, ready to claim whatever they had come for. Now there were too many questions, too many unknowns tangling in Aiden's mind. Who could he trust? Just as everything spun wildly out of control, the device ominously pulsed brighter, vibrating through the air. Aiden screamed, "Grace, no!" But those words fell away into the chaos, swallowed by the pandemonium. Could he break free from this twisted fate? The question remained thick in the air. Would he face the shadows of betrayal, or would he become them? As those around him battled for freedom, Aiden stood at a crossroads, feeling destiny pull him into the darkness, and he had to decide. Aiden felt the world tremble around him, fear electrifying every nerve in his body. He stood frozen, caught in this storm of shadows as the cloaked figures loomed closer, their intent dark as night. Panic gripped him. What was happening? Everything spun like a broken carousel, images flashing, his mother, Grace, Leo, and the terrifying truth unraveling in front of him. "Run!" Leo shouted again. But it was too late. The shadows thickened, swirling like a living thing, growing more powerful by the second. Aiden's heart raced, each beat echoing louder than the last. He could see Grace, now enclosed by the dark mist. An eerie calm settled over her face. She wasn't just struggling, she was embracing it. "Aiden, you have to join us," she cried, her voice ringing solidly through the tumult. "This is who you really are." Her eyes sparkled, but they weren't the innocent eyes he had known. They were different now, too knowing, too hungry. Don't listen to her. Leo's voice cracked, full of desperation. That's not your sister anymore. It's the darkness talking. The cloaked leader laughed, the sound sharp and cold. She knows, Aiden. She knows exactly what you're capable of, what you can become. Aiden felt the walls close in. Grace's expression twisted into something he couldn't quite read. Aiden, she pleaded, we can harness this power together. Don't fight it. But the words felt like shackles, binding him as the shadows reached out, hungry and insistent. Suddenly the shadows shattered. A blinding light erupted from the device at the cloaked leader's feet. The whole restaurant shook as images swept over the screens, and memories flooded back, moments Aiden had buried deep within. There he was in a sterile lab, traces of wires and machines around him, the past tearing itself free. No, no. He staggered back, the horror slicing through him like glass. But it didn't stop. Images sped up, faces flashing, people he knew, people he didn't. It felt like a psalm of betrayal, a symphony of hidden truths winding back to him. And then, you weren't just born, Aiden. His mother's voice rang through, echoing against the chaos. You were, but the words faltered, drowned by the clamoring noise around. Don't, Aiden screamed, feeling the walls of reality shake. Just tell me the truth. And then bursting through the cacophony, the shadows surged. No, he shouted again, feeling the tendrils reach toward him. But suddenly, the cloaked figure lunged. Aiden felt an icy grip around his wrist, pulling him into the dark, and then everything shifted. Without warning, the world went silent. He stood outside time itself, surrounded by swirling shadows. And for a moment, there was peace, a heavy stillness, and then an earth-shattering scream pierced the silence. It was Jonah. Aiden turned just in time to see him get engulfed by the darkness, his face morphing into sheer terror. Aiden, please. Everything condensed to that plea. Sharp enough to cut. In an instant, Leo took hold of Aiden's arm, desperation igniting. You can't let it take you. But before Aiden could respond, Grace's laughter rippled through the air. Aiden, you think this is all a game? You have no idea what's at stake. With that, the shadows pulled tighter, as if anticipating his next move. And just then, the cloaked leader revealed a smirk. Awaken. You need to see the truth of your power before it's too late. The flicker of the device pulsed in response. And then everything exploded into light, burning away the darkness. When the brightness receded, Aiden staggered back, gasping. No. The words fell from him like ashes. He wasn't just a pawn in this messed up game. He was the game. But then, reality cracked open, the rift swallowing them whole. For a moment, Aiden was suspended in an endless void, memories washing over him like a torrent. Faces swirled, conversations echoed, a revelation howling on the edge of his consciousness. When the world snapped back, the restaurant was gone. They were no longer in Citrine, but in a vast white expanse, stretching endlessly in every direction. The realization crashed over him like steel. They had been dragged into something larger than life itself. Welcome, a chilling voice resonated, and Aiden turned. There stood a figure cloaked in shadows, familiar yet ungraspable. You can't escape what you are, Aiden. You've awakened the truth. Who are you? Aiden stammered, every fiber in him shivering. And then the figure stepped into the light, revealing a face he recognized all too well. But the realization slammed into him like a freight train. This person bore Aiden's own face, twisted and dark. Hello, brother, it said, a cruel smile spreading across its features. Everything in Aiden's world spiraled. The shock didn't just wash over him. It poured into the very core of his being. He stood frozen, questions swelling like a tide. What did this mean? Who was he really? And what lay ahead? Aiden's heart pounded in his chest, each thud reverberating in the cold, alien space around him. The figure standing before him, sharing his face, had a twisted grin that sent a wave of nausea rippling through him. Welcome back to reality, brother, it sneered. You've been asleep far too long. Brother? Aiden echoed, the word tasting bitter and foreign on his tongue. Anguish and confusion knotted in his chest. What do you mean? The doppelganger stepped closer, shadows swirling around them. We share more than just blood, Aiden. I am what you cast away, the darkness you've denied. Together, we could rule the very world you've kept locked out. The gravity of those words hung heavily in the air. His breaths quickened, panic slithering through him as memories cascaded to the forefront of his mind. His mother's whispers of protection, the secrets buried beneath smiles, the truth hidden in shadows. Aiden, Leo's voice pierced through the chaos, pulling him back. Don't listen to it, it's trying to manipulate you. Leo, we're stuck in a nightmare. Aiden shouted, his voice raw. How can I fight this when I don't even understand what I am? You're stronger than this. Grace's fierce determination sparked a flicker of hope. She stepped forward, defiant. We're not alone. But the figure laughed, a cruel sound that echoed in the stillness. You think you can escape your destiny? You are the progeny of power, and it is your fate to embrace it. A rift of guilt unfurled in Aiden's gut. No, I am not that. His throat tightened as he met the gaze of his twisted reflection. I choose who I am. The shadows roared, swirling violently, threatening to engulf them all. Aiden felt an undeniable pull deep within, but this wasn't power. It was temptation. A choice to sink into darkness. Leo and Grace took a step forward, voices overlapping. Fight it, Aiden. Look at what they want. Grace shouted, pointing to the figures lingering beyond the rift, waiting with eager hunger. The cloaked leader glared, eyes smoldering with fury. You will regret turning against your blood. In that moment, Aiden felt it, a surge of clarity washing over him. This was not just a battle for his identity. It was a fight for everyone he cared about. He could feel the warmth of Leo's friendship, the bond of his sister's loyalty. The shadows pushed him to embrace disdain and anger, but he clutched onto the light of his family. No more, Aiden shouted, determination igniting in every fiber of his being. You won't take me. With a fierce cry, he thrust out his hand, a radiant light spilling forth. It clashed against the impenetrable darkness, illuminating the shadows with a blinding brilliance. We're not what you made us. We are who we choose to be. The energy surged through him, intertwining with laughter and tears, love and danger. The cloaked figure faltered, lips twisting in a snarl of rage. Leo and Grace joined him, hands raised, channeling their strength into a radiant force that pulsed throughout the space. As the light expanded, the oppressive shadows writhed, struggling to break free, with one final roar. Aiden pushed forward, unleashing the truth buried deep within. The darkness shattered, exploding into a million shards, dissipating the tension and fear surrounding them. Silence fell, a deep breath shared among them. Aiden felt a lightness wash over him, the weight of familial ties no longer oppressive but empowering. He turned to Grace, who beamed with pride, and then glanced at Leo, who nodded, eyes shining with the fire of their shared victory. We did it, Aiden whispered, exhilarated. But in the distance, the cloaked leader stood, expression darkened with anger. This is not over, Aiden. You can run from your past, but the shadows will always find you. Aiden shook his head, fear gone. The truth they had uncovered had lit a fire within him that no darkness could extinguish. Then let them come. I choose my family. With their hands joined, the trio stepped forward together, the warmth of their bond wrapping around them like a shield. They navigated through the swirling space, emerging together into a world beyond the shadows, a world full of possibility and light. As they crossed into the brilliance, Aiden couldn't help but smile. There was so much left to unravel, so much to forge anew. But they would do it together, and for the first time, he felt wholly awake. A sudden rush of determination surged within him. This new chapter would be theirs. We'll uncover the truth, and we'll face it head-on together. And just like that, the shadows faded into the echoes of the past, a reminder that they had fought their way to the light. Now, before this story fades into the night, you have to subscribe right now. Don't risk missing out on any future tales filled with mystery and adventure. Smash that like button right now. Your support feeds the story's heartbeat, and I need you to help keep it alive. Flood the comment section with your thoughts and theories. What do you think will happen next? And please, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this ends. Your support means everything, and together we can build this community into something incredible. Let's keep the story alive.